Greetings, sir and sirettes, and welcome back to Robocraft with me, Lathrix, and of course, welcome to a bit of a weird video. As you can probably already tell by the title, today we're going to be talking about my opinions and my experience so far with the recent patch Epic Loot, both the cons, and there are quite a few I do want to talk about, and the positives, and honestly there's quite a few of those as well, as I'm one of the people who tend to try and look at things from a fairly balanced perspective, seeing both the good and the bad, and I try to stay as objective as possible. That's the reason why I keep on making the new leveling accounts, so I can see the game from a beginner's perspective, as I've definitely invested myself into the Robocraft community and into the game itself far too much to simply be swept away by the higher end content and the fact I've got a press account, and I never want to try and become that kind of person. I want to stay as objective, like I say, as possible. So today, I'm going to be talking about my experiences, my personal opinions on things, which admittedly are a little bit negative, to be perfectly honest, and I would also, very importantly, like to see what you have to say. In the comment section below, please leave any opinions you have about the patch, especially regarding what I say. If you disagree or agree with things I say, please tell me, and give me reasons why. Simple comments saying, I don't like this, aren't really too helpful for the grand scheme of things, but explaining why you don't like something, or why you do like something, is a great way for me to kind of gauge how people are responding to the recent patch, and it very well may shape my opinions in the future. It's definitely the best way to kind of get an overall view from the entire community. And the fact the forums scare the crap out of me at the moment, the comment section is a much safer place, because I have power there, mahaha and such. So, let's get straight into it. I want to stay as brief as possible, which means it's probably going to be a long video knowing me. So first of all, I think it's only fair we talk about one of the biggest sweeping changes that Epic Loot has introduced, which of course is the loot system itself, replacing RP and Galaxy Cash with a new money system for premium, which we'll get into in a bit more detail later, and of course the new crate system, replacing the old way of getting RP with robits from recycling items and simply giving you items at random at the end of matches. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Or like most things in life, is it a bit of a double-edged sword, both having a negative and a positive? And really, it is definitely the latter, with a whole heap of problems for every positive. So, first of all, let's talk about the positives. Let's be happy for a moment. The big positive for me with the new loot system, with the new crate system, is that it's a lot more interactive, and it gives you a certain sense of achievement at the end of every battle, or simply logging into the game. Having the ability to open up a crate, rather than simply being given a green currency in the corner, really does feel a lot more interactive, and a fair bit more inspiring to actually get out there and get some battles done. Even the single player has benefited massively, because of course now, single player loot actually means something. Beforehand you got a tiny little bit of RP, now you get crates. Even if you only get the rusted or bronze, which is bronze and rusted amazingly, it does feel like there is a reason to do single player, other than the fact it also gives you loads of experience for some reason, which is kind of awesome, because I do like testing out my robots in single player. I've got quite a few levels so far on the leveling series by simply testing out my robots, yay for that. And honestly, both of those are, for me, massive positives, although that's probably the only positive I'm going to talk about in detail. It is a big positive. It is very interactive, and I do enjoy it a lot more than simply being given a certain amount of RP, go and have fun with it. But then come the negatives. So the first negative I would like to talk about, and again, everything I talk about is completely subjective in this, so feel free to disagree, feel free to agree, is that I feel personally it's very punishing if you are like me and you get blinkered and want to build a specific type of robot. If I really wanted a high-end tank with the higher-end tracks, it's going to be very difficult for me to go out there and actually simply do that. So the recycling system is a little bit harsh, let's be diplomatic. A lot of people are saying it's absolutely awful. I don't think it's that bad, but it is a little bit harsh. Of course, you can't be simply given the exact robot value of everything, because then that makes the crate system completely pointless. But sometimes when you want something very specific, like you've just got one track from a chest, let's say, a crate, and you want 3 more to complete your design you've got in your head, getting those 3 tracks, particularly if they're the epic tracks, the higher end tracks, good luck with that. That's going to take a lot of grinding and a lot of recycling of other stuff you might want later, and that is very disheartening. It's something I really don't enjoy, because I'm not someone who tends to build spur of the moment. I tend to build with an idea in mind when I do build. I'm not really much of a builder anymore anyway, especially not on my main account, but if I want something, I tend to go out and try and get that with all of my effort, rather than kind of doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and eventually making it. At the moment, recently on the leveling series, a bit of a spoiler if I don't post the episode first, I got an epic walker leg, one of the legs which allow you to climb. I think it's called a crawler or walker leg, or possibly insect leg, I can't remember anymore, the non-mech leg. And then I started looking into the pricing of it, and I realised I probably haven't saved up enough robits so far in total, from level 1 all the way to level 15, to actually afford 3 more legs. And that's a problem, because now I really want a walker flyer, and that's not going to happen in the near future at all, and especially in the new mode where all weapons and all movement types are equal no matter the size of them, because it's balanced around CPU. The more CPU the weapon, of course it's going to do more things, but it's going to cost more CPU, and thus that's the big negative. And not always is the bigger CPU one technically better. If you want a more consistent damage, for instance, with rails, the smaller rails will let you keep on shooting, whereas the bigger ones will do a lot of burst damage, but you're going to be out of energy quickly. And that's the same with the legs as well, and all movement types. There are pros and cons to each one, and it's all meant to be somewhat on an even playing field. But I want the more sturdy leg type, and I simply can't get that. And that really does make me not motivated to play the game when I realise how much of a grind fest I'm going to have to do, and I'm going to have to make the decisions to recycle things, such as the epic tracks I got a while back, and that's really quite sad. So that's one of the biggest problems for me. The second problem is a weird one, and actually ties in a little bit to premium. Now this is very subjective, and some people have agreed with me wholeheartedly, some people have been on the subject, but it's something I really don't like. And it's something so minor, but it really gets to me. I hate the fact it shows you the items you could have had if you were premium. I find that very manipulative and potentially very easy to abuse. Now, I'm not saying the system is abused. I'm not saying that they are on different random number generators. I'm fairly certain they are on the exact one. But the problem is, it does throw up the issue of potentially that could be the case. Because premium is a moneymaker, and it's the biggest moneymaker Robocraft currently have, I believe, could be wrong there, but that's what I've been told. It could be the case they could make it so if it's a locked section, they have a higher chance of giving you more shiny loot, which is of higher value or simply higher rarity. Again, that's not the case, it really isn't, but it is something they could do if they really wanted to push premium. And the problem is, a lot of people have actually said this to me, that they believe it is rigged, and that throws up doubt into people's minds, and that makes people not want to really pay for premium because they feel it's rigged. And it's a very disheartening, again, disheartening is a word apparently I'm going to use a lot, it's a very disheartening process, and it's something which might get you away from playing the game if you truly believe it's rigged. And it just opens up the possibility that maybe it is because money's involved, and that is an issue I find. I really just wish the podium came up, it says it's locked, and then on top of it, if you had premium, you would unlock this. I would prefer that so much, because I really hate the chance of getting an item and then simply it being taken away. I despise it, and the more I play the game, to start off with I found it quite funny. Oh look, I almost got a rare, oh well. But now I really, really dislike it. As my fiancée said when she first saw the crate system, and I'm pretty much quoting it because I've written it down, it's a manipulative system that really toys with people's emotions. Now, I wouldn't go as far as what my fiancée said, but that was her knee-jerk reaction as someone returning to Robocraft, so I do kind of see that as a bit of a tell that some people may see that as what it actually is. So the second thing I would like to talk about, once again a double-edged sword, as it has been for pretty much everything today, is the new squashed system. The idea that all weapons specifically are equal to each other because they all play different roles, even within the same category. For instance, the laser wasp is a very, very short-range weapon that can deal a lot of damage if you get the shots to actually hit. It also gives you a lot of redundancy, and I found the wasps to be fantastic. And then, as you go on, the very large lasers are not quite a sniper weapon, but honestly, medium to long range, the lasers can deal a lot of damage, especially with the mega laser, whatever it's now called. And I actually really love this. I love the idea of being able to have the same weapon type on a robot, being able to swap between them, and them all fulfilling different roles. The biggest way I've noticed this is actually with the nano weapons, having the cheapest one heal for very little, but cost no energy. But then if you want a burst of healing, if you're in a true support bot, which I may have built on my main account recently, you can burst heal, use up all of your energy and save someone's life, but then if you're just kind of staying back, making sure someone's alive, you can go back to the weaker healing weapon. I do kind of wish Megabots were still here, because that would be a fantastic role there. Oh look, our Megabot is almost dead. Burst heal, get his guns back, and then swap back to the weaker healing weapon. The same is also true with the Teslas, the cheapest one being 0 energy, then the strongest one being all of your energy, but for a massive burst. How much are you dedicated to using Tesla? So, honestly, the squash system I think's fantastic. But, like many patches, like many things in alpha, like the game currently is, balance, I think, hasn't yet truly been found. Some weapons really are devastating compared with their counterparts, and I am speaking now from, again, my experience with the Plasma Devastator. The Plasma Devastator, even if you only include one on your robot, can utterly devastate the opponents. It can be brutal beyond belief. And you're only using one, and the only thing I can think of while I'm using it is, why would I have the weaker plasma? The weaker plasma definitely do have their role, once again, massive redundancy and a faster fire rate since you can spam them very easily, and of course the fact they're very cheap, but I would really struggle to have many situations where I would prefer that over the Devastator. The sheer damage they can do with the massive area of effect is just really, really good. So I'm a little bit of two minds about this, but I feel that balance with certain weapons, it does feel like some sizes of weapon aren't as good as other sizes. Of course, balance will be eventually found, and again, completely subjective, just my opinion so far on that. Some people have said that Plasma is perfectly balanced, and I completely see the validity of their opinions, and honestly, I'm sure in some situations the Pulsar is better than a Devastator, but I've tried both on the same robots, I've tried a lot of sizes of Plasma, and I very rarely think to myself, yep, that smaller Plasma, the one that's common, is better. I haven't thought that once yet, which does lead to the loot system maybe being a bit skewed, that Epic is actually better than blue, and blue is better than green, and green is better than, wait, white is just cubes. Well, I would say Plasma is better than cubes. Matchmaking. Matchmaking is a thing which will always get on people's nerves. Even if it's done perfectly, you are going to have a bad match. But recently, watching some streams, particularly that of Keola and Uziel UK, I will link both of their stream channels in the description, both on Twitch. They have had some very wonky matchmaking, especially since now it's skill-based in addition to the CPU cap. Now, sorry, the CPU matchmaking. The more you win, the idea is you start being put up against stronger enemies, and because it's kind of in the background, you can't really see your matchmaking, you can be put into some bizarre matches. The worst I've seen, particularly again with Keola and Uzi, is that they are using 500, 400 CPU bots, 500 or 600 actually CPU bots, being put up against 1,500 plus, because they've won many matches in a row, and they've done well in each one. They're being put up against massive CPU robots, and I don't think that's fair. That's not something I would find good. I haven't really noticed that myself yet, so again, confirmation would be needed. I have seen a little bit of it, but not enough for me to think, oh, it's happening all the time. But for some streamers, I've noticed it a lot. So I've seen it firsthand, sorry, well, third hand, I guess, or second hand, I suppose. But I haven't actually seen it firsthand that much, but I've seen it enough to see it's a bit of an issue. I've done a lot of seeing, apparently. I'm good at speaking, can you tell? But anyway, the problem I find is that feels very harsh and almost like you're being punished for doing well and being in the winning team. Having a matchmaking skill base within your own CPU sphere, I find absolutely fine. If you're a 500 CPU bot and you keep on winning, I think you should be put up against and with people with 500 CPU bots who are doing well as well. So the higher skill players are bashing each other over the head with plasma, and the lower class of player, I suppose, are also bashing each other over the head of plasma and probably missing a bit. I would be in that category, honestly. But regardless, it feels very punishing for doing well, and that isn't something I think should be encouraged. And again, at the moment, matchmaking is a little bit hidden. It's quite difficult to figure out even if skill-based matchmaking is truly implemented properly sometimes. I would love if it was more visual on the screen, if it told you your matchmaking value or something like that, or perhaps even if there was just like CPU brackets, either true brackets like the old tier system, or maybe a softer bracket where it can be flexible, but the more you go away, the harsher it is that you try and stay within your group. Because at the moment, that really doesn't seem to be the case. A very small flyer coming up against a robot with 3 flaks, for instance, which happened in one of the streams, is a little bit concerning and very, very scary. Also, of course, he was using one of the higher tier of legs as well, so his CPU was at minimum, well, in the thousands. Speaking of the CPU issue, there is one other issue which I don't really think can be fixed so easily without having some sweeping changes to either the CPU system with matchmaking again, or some form of nerf to very small robots. Of course, I'm talking about the microbots and the virus bots, the tiny little robots that are completely dominating in the lower CPU at the moment, which is a very, very harsh experience for anyone new to the game. I would have probably rage quit if I was killed by a tiny little robot several times when I'm still trying to learn the game as a brand new player, to be perfectly honest. Now, how do you fix this? It's going to be pretty difficult, but the fact they are so rampantly common at the moment, having between 4 and 6 per match I'm sort of averaging now, does make me be a little bit concerned for the state of the early tier matches, the low CPU matches. And with the virus bots, which I think may be fixed now, that was a name coined for the tiny robots which had bugged hit collision, which could get into the reactor of battle arenas and pretty much be almost impossible to dislodge unless a player gets a plasma in just the right place and manages to hit them. And of course, they're using the smaller plasma, well, the AoE effect won't actually clip them to transfer damage, so have fun with that. I believe that's fixed, but the microbot issue is something which is prominent enough that I do think it bears mentioning, but I also have absolutely no idea how you'd go about fixing it without either adding tier systems or nerfing very small bots in some way. And finally, my final opinion, which is strong enough to actually mention, is the RoboShop changes. I really, really, really don't like the RoboShop changes. I don't like the concept that if you have the items in your inventory, you can get the robot for free, and that doesn't compensate the creator in any way. Now, I'm not saying you should pay full, because I do like the idea behind that. It's quite a nice idea. You've got the items, so you're just making it after seeing the blueprint. It's pretty cool. But I would like if there was a flat base, a flat cost, as I knock the webcam, in which you have to pay, even if it's only very, very small, like perhaps 5% of what the bot's cost would normally be in Robits, and then that 5% be given to the creator, and that base is always the same and is a true 5%, or perhaps 5% going down to 3% as to not be able to give infinite RP to a Smurf account or something, or sorry, infinite Robits to a Smurf account or something, a very small baby account you've got from your main account. But I would like if there was some way to compensate the creators, as I've seen some people getting a ridiculous amount of sales, but then because of the forge cost, they get nothing. Now that may have been changed by now. I haven't used the robot system in a while. If it has been changed already, because I have heard some people talking about it, I will mention that in the description, so don't worry, it's already been seen. It's just something I'll have to check out afterwards. And that really is that. There is a lot of other things I would like to cover, but I haven't really got strong enough opinions on them yet. But if there is anything you feel I've missed, which is quite prominent at the moment, again, please leave your comment in the comment section. And thank you so much for watching. Hopefully in the background there was some kind of Robocraft fun times with my leveling account, or just perhaps opening crates, I don't know. I've recorded quite a bit of that recently, just so it's not just me talking to the webcam the entire time, if I'm even showing my webcam, because I look pretty awful at the moment. I've just came back from jogging. It's stupidly bright in here because our artificial lighting, well, our lighting in here is terrible, and it's currently dark outside still because I jog very early. So, thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed the video, then of course, likes, favourites, shares, comments, all that good stuff helps out me, helps out the channel, and most importantly, shows that Robocraft is a series you wish to see continued in the future. Once again, feel free to comment any opinions you have in the comments below.